Caleb returned with a fresh set of injuries and a container of lobster mac and cheese. He dropped the expensive takeout onto the table and sank into Leo's desk chair. He ordered Leo to get the first aid kit before he even looked at the food. It was clear from the scrapes and bruises that he'd been racing again. Leo told him he should see a doctor, but Caleb refused, dismissing the wounds as superficial as he pulled off his shirt. Sighing, Leo retrieved the first aid box, his movements practiced and weary. Just as he dabbed a cotton swab with antiseptic, Caleb's hand shot out, clamping around his wrist. A reckless grin spread across Caleb's face, and with a surprisingly gentle tug, he pulled Leo down onto his lap. Caleb's legs were covered in scrapes, but his expression didn't flicker. Leo commented that it must hurt, but Caleb simply said it wasn't his pain to worry about. After cleaning the wounds, Leo struggled to get up, but Caleb let him go to put the kit away. Caleb then stood and began rummaging through Leo's desk for a fork. He had a peculiar insistence on proper dinnerware, believing that eating from a container was merely surviving, not living. It was a philosophy that perfectly matched his status as the heir to a formidable family fortune, though it didn't stop him from paying extra for the most secure takeout containers. Leo often thought about how much that extra money could help him. He was barely surviving as it was. Caleb's search stopped. He held up a thin plastic stick, two stark red lines glowing against the white. Leo's heart hammered against his ribs. He'd forgotten to throw it away. Before his mind could even process the mistake, his body moved on its own. He lunged, snatching the test from Caleb's hand and burying it deep within the trash can. He claimed it was a test for the flu, his voice tight. He quickly added that new test kits all looked like that and warned Caleb to keep his distance to avoid getting sick. Caleb just sneered, unafraid. He cupped the back of Leo's neck, pulling him close until their noses were almost touching, their breath mingling in the small space between them. He murmured that he wasn't scared of a little flu before tilting his head to close the distance. Leo turned away sharply, Caleb's lips brushing against his ear. The movement stopped. Caleb asked if he was unwilling. Leo confirmed he was. Caleb reminded him that it wouldn't be the first time, but Leo insisted their previous encounters were misunderstandings. The first time, 3 months ago on the night Caleb had moved in. Caleb had drunkenly stumbled into Leo's bed and kissed him for what felt like an eternity, mistaking him for an ex-girlfriend in a disoriented state. The second time in the bathroom was an accident on Leo's part. He'd gotten shampoo in his eyes and stumbled blindly into Caleb, their lips meeting by chance. Caleb had no patience for the debate. He gripped Leo's chin, forcing him to meet his gaze, and declared they could have another accident right then. This time, however, was different. A sudden, convulsive gag escaped Leo's throat. Caleb froze, his desire turning to disbelief. He asked if Leo found him disgusting. It wasn't that, of course, but before Leo could deny it, another wave of nausea hit him. The air grew thick with a tense silence. Caleb clearly didn't believe it was just an involuntary physical reaction. He released Leo and took 2 steps back. Leo tried to salvage the situation, apologizing and suggesting Caleb find someone else. The words, meant to de-escalate, seemed to ignite a fire in Caleb's eyes. He let out a cold laugh, grabbed his shirt, and stormed out of the room. Leo, worried he would go racing again in his reckless state, called out a weak reminder about his injuries. The only reply was the violent slam of the door. He stood there for a long moment before slowly sinking back into his chair. He carefully tied up the trash bag containing the pregnancy test. Caleb didn't know that beyond their misunderstandings and accidents, there had been one other night. A night that had left something inside of him that wasn't supposed to be there. The doctor had explained his rare biological condition, using diagrams and case studies to help him understand, but the words had been a meaningless drone against the roaring in his ears. His world had collapsed. The only thing he'd registered was that he had to wait at least another 2 weeks before he could terminate the pregnancy. He hadn't mentioned that after paying for the specialist appointment and the tests, he was completely broke. His entire internship paycheck had been sent home, swallowed by a man who never gave anything back. He had been sure Caleb wouldn't return that night, but he still saved half of the lobster mac and cheese for him. The meat was tender, the cheese sauce rich and decadent, topped with a sprinkle of toasted breadcrumbs. He resisted for as long as he could before picking up one more piece. As he put it in his mouth, the door swung open. The shock nearly made him choke. Caleb stood in the doorway, a large plastic bag in his hand, his expression just as grim as when he had left. He glanced at the remaining food, his tone laced with mockery. He asked why the lobster mac and cheese wasn't considered as disgusting as him. After swallowing, Leo explained in a hoarse voice that he hadn't been feeling well earlier and truly meant no offense. Caleb's expression softened slightly. He told him to come take the medicine he had bought. Leo confessed he hadn't expected him to return. Caleb asked where else he would go. When Leo suggested his own family home, Caleb's eyes darkened with a familiar flash of cold anger. They had fought again. Leo was surprised. Caleb had only moved into the dorm during their final semester of senior year. His family, with its deep ties to the city's criminal underworld, meant he'd never had to settle for anything less than luxury. He came to the dorm not out of choice, but out of spite after a major falling out with his father, who had cut off his cards and seized his properties. None of Caleb's usual friends dared to help him, fearing his father's wrath. So it fell to Leo, a virtual stranger, to stretch his meager internship salary to feed the disowned heir, secretly using forbidden appliances to cook him meals. Their strange, symbiotic life had continued until Caleb's butler, unable to watch any longer, secretly provided financial support. By last month, the relationship with his family had seemed to be mended, culminating in a lavish birthday party to which Caleb had invited Leo. That was the night of the accident. It had been less than a month, and they were already at odds again. Seeing that Caleb didn't want to discuss it, Leo didn't press. Caleb had bought a pile of antibiotics, enough to make a healthy person sick. Leo subconsciously covered his stomach, and he noticed Caleb's gaze follow the movement. He quickly insisted he had already taken medicine that night and that mixing them might be dangerous. Caleb studied him for a long moment before nodding. Just as Leo thought he had accepted the excuse, Caleb reached out and pressed the back of his hand against Leo's forehead, observing that his temperature felt a little high. He warned that if it didn't go down, Leo would have to take the new medicine. That night, Caleb once again found his way into Leo's bed. The kiss he had avoided earlier landed with unerring precision. Caleb's voice was a low whisper in the dark, asking if Leo truly didn't understand his intentions. Leo feigned sleep, his eyelashes still. After a long, silent moment, Caleb bit his earlobe, hard, and muttered that he desperately wanted him. Leo lay motionless until he heard the soft, even breathing of sleep beside him. He slowly opened his eyes. If he had heard those words before that fateful night, he would have been overjoyed. After all, there had been so many times he could have pushed Caleb away but hadn't. Over the past 3 months, he had developed feelings for him. Caleb's confidence, his swagger, his carefully measured advances. It was all intoxicating. He was like a gutter rat on a Paris street, dreaming of a fresh croissant. A lone skiff in the vast ocean, irresistibly drawn to the glittering pull of a massive cruise ship. But waking up in Caleb's arms that morning after the party, his naive hope for a beginning had been shattered by a conversation he overheard between Caleb's father and the butler. They were discussing the imminent arrival of Caleb's betrothed, a partner from an arranged marriage whose flight had been delayed. He had forgotten, living in their simple roommate bubble, that rats were not meant for the light. The great ship continued on its brilliant course, while the broken skiff, after a brief, chance encounter, was left to sink into the abyss. To save money, Leo took a night shift at the convenience store near campus. The pay was abysmal, but he could take home expired food at the end of his shift. His days became a blur of his internship, the store, and late-night thesis revisions on 4 hours of sleep. The building supervisor, a kind woman who knew his situation, often left the main door unlocked for him, reassuring him that tough times would pass once he graduated. Then life delivered another blow. The HR manager at his internship pulled him aside, hesitantly informing him that due to budget cuts, there were no full-time positions available. His internship would not be converted. He had to be gone after graduation. He was grateful for the heads-up, but it meant scrambling for a new job during the tail end of the hiring season. One evening, while wiping down shelves, he dropped 2 bottles of fruit wine, shattering them on the floor. A full day's wages gone. As he swept up the glass, a strange thought crossed his mind. He wished someone would drug Caleb again, just like at the party, so he could pretend the chasm between them didn't exist. A vibration from his phone broke the fantasy. It was Caleb, asking why he wasn't in the dorm and noting that the medicine was unopened. Caleb had been in Italy for the past week, handling some old family business. Before leaving, he had stood over Leo's sleeping form and said he might die there, asking if Leo would continue to feign sleep. By the time Leo had decided to respond, Caleb was gone. Now, Caleb was demanding his location, saying he was with friends and wanted to introduce them. Leo knew that once they graduated, the fragile veil of equality the university provided would be torn away. There was no point in meeting his friends. He replied that he was busy with work and put his phone away. Near the end of his shift, the automatic doors slid open, and a wave of noise and laughter filled the store. Amidst the chaos, he instantly recognized Caleb's voice telling someone to stop messing around. His head snapped up, and his eyes met Caleb's. The faint smile on Caleb's lips froze, his expression darkening. He asked what kind of work this was. His powerful presence silenced the group, their curious, invasive gazes falling on Leo. He took off his uniform vest and told his replacement he was leaving, but he was stopped. He had to file a report for the broken bottles. Fortunately, the group's attention shifted, relieving some of the pressure. Only Caleb remained at the counter, demanding an explanation for the lie. The truth was simple: he needed the money. He had considered asking Caleb for a loan, but he knew he could never repay the debt of obligation. After a tense standoff, Caleb's anger seemed to subside. He asked if the flu was better. Before Leo could answer, a short scream cut through the air. Caleb's expression tightened, and he immediately ran toward the sound. Leo followed to see a handsome young man on the floor near a corner shelf, a cut on his ankle. It was Julian. Caleb, his face grim, brushed aside the others and lifted the man into his arms. The group erupted in teasing whistles. Julian, draped over Caleb's shoulder, shot a fleeting, triumphant glance at Leo. Caleb's voice was steady as he told Julian he shouldn't have come. As he passed Leo on his way out, he leaned in and whispered for him to leave the door unlocked. The embrace, the concern, the intimacy was undeniable. This was someone important. Later, reviewing the security footage, Leo couldn't figure out how Julian had fallen. The corner was a blind spot, Caleb was waiting outside the dormitory, leaning against his car, the tip of a cigarette glowing red in the darkness. Leo had never seen him smoke before. He approached, ready to take responsibility for the incident, but Caleb cut him off with a cold laugh. A small white rectangle struck Leo's cheek before clattering to the pavement. It was a pregnancy test. Caleb must have taken Julian to the 24-hour pharmacy down the street. As Leo bent to pick it up, Caleb grabbed him by the back of his neck, his grip painfully tight, forcing Leo to face the fury in his eyes. He accused him of getting someone pregnant, of lying about the flu, his words dripping with contempt. He sneered that it made sense now why he was working a dead-end job. He was too broke to even afford protection. Then Caleb let go, slammed his car door, and sped away into the night. Inside, Leo found his desk covered in expensive candies and gifts from Italy. He sat down and slowly unwrapped a piece of dark chocolate. It was bitter. Caleb didn't return. 2 days later, Leo's adoptive father called, demanding money. His voice was a venomous whisper, threatening to involve Leo's younger sister, saying she herself was worth money. The threat made Leo's stomach churn. With trembling hands, he transferred every last cent he had to the man. Staring at his empty bank account, a dark thought surfaced. Maybe he should just let the pregnancy continue, give birth in secret, and leave the baby in some forgotten place. The thought horrified him, making him no better than his own parents who had abandoned him by a river. He lay in the dorm for 2 days, the world silent, until his phone rang. It was Caleb. He answered. After a long pause filled with ragged breathing, Caleb asked why he hadn't answered his phone. He said the utility company had sent him a late notice for the dorm's electricity bill. Then, his voice hardening, he asked if Leo had moved in with that woman. Leo's silence was taken as confirmation. After another long pause, Caleb's voice was low and strained when he asked what he had ever meant to Leo. Then the line went dead. The phone had run out of battery. A moment later, the overhead light flickered on. Caleb had paid the bill. That night, a man in a cheap shirt approached him outside the dorm, offering him an easy job that would make use of his good looks. He grabbed Leo's wrist, trying to pull him toward a car. Suddenly, a fist flew past Leo's ear, connecting with the man's jaw. It was Caleb. He pinned the man to the ground, his voice like ice as he demanded to know who he worked for. The man, terrified, stammered out a name. Caleb froze for a second, a look of disbelief on his face, which gave the man enough time to scramble away. Caleb seemed different, the youthful arrogance replaced by a sharper, more dangerous edge. He intercepted Leo, grabbing his arm and pulling him back toward the dorm. Back in the room, he insisted Leo treat a scrape on his knuckle from the punch. He flinched dramatically as Leo applied the antiseptic. Leo suspected it was an act. He asked if the man was hired to stage the scene. Caleb denied it, his expression turning cold as he promised to get an explanation. Then he insisted that, for his safety, Leo had to move in with him. Leo refused and grabbed his luggage. Caleb watched him silently until he reached the door. Then, in one swift motion, he lifted Leo off his feet and placed him on the desk, caging him in. He buried his face in Leo's neck, his voice muffled as he confessed how much he'd missed him. The familiar pull was still there, irresistible. Leo's arms briefly went around him before he caught himself and pulled away. Caleb looked up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. He insisted there were no accidents, that Leo felt the same way, and that his situation with the other person was just an obligation he could buy his way out of. He pleaded with Leo to stay with him, but there was already someone else. To stay would be to accept a role he couldn't stomach. As Caleb leaned in, His hand slid under Leo's shirt. It moved down across his chest and then stilled on the slight, firm curve of his abdomen. Leo stiffened. Caleb paused, his brow furrowed. He pulled his hand back, his voice tight with a new, frantic urgency. He said they were going to the hospital. At the private hospital owned by Caleb's family, the truth came out. The doctors explained Leo's rare intersex condition, a chromosomal anomaly that had gone undetected until now. They presented two options: surgery to remove the developing organs, or hormone therapy to sustain the pregnancy. In the hallway, Caleb smoked for a long time. When he returned, he sat on the edge of the bed and began to peel an apple with a small knife. He assured Leo that the doctors were the best and the surgery was low risk. He stated that the procedure and all subsequent recovery would be covered. Leo wouldn't have to pay a cent. The implication was clear, but Leo told him he wanted to keep it. Caleb's voice rose, sharp with disbelief, telling him to be rational, that it was the child of a monster. Leo quietly refuted that. The room fell silent, Caleb's anger turning to stunned confusion. He asked if it was consensual. Leo nodded. After a long pause, Caleb's voice was barely a whisper when he asked who it was. He promised to give him the money to raise the child as his own, but he had to know the name of the man responsible. Leo remained silent. He didn't want Caleb's family to get involved, to take the one thing that was truly his. Caleb pressed, running through the timeline, noting that they were together almost every day that month, except for the night of his birthday party, a night he couldn't remember clearly. They reached a compromise. Leo would continue to live in his rented apartment, but Caleb would have a key and could visit whenever he wanted. The next day, a large sum of money appeared in Leo's account, with the memo voluntary gift. He messaged Caleb, insisting it was a loan. Caleb replied a moment later, "This month's pacification fee for the little beast. Let him know his stepdad has deep pockets." A wave of something sour and sweet washed over Leo. Another transfer arrived. "No need to repay the principal, but I'll be collecting interest." That night, Caleb showed him exactly what that interest was. A week later, Caleb drove him to his family's villa. As they pulled up, he casually mentioned that his bed was very large. The dream of that bed, however, was shattered the moment they walked inside. Sitting on the plush sofa was Julian. He greeted Caleb warmly, his smile faltering slightly when he saw Leo. He recognized him as the convenience store worker. A familiar, subtle hostility filled the air. Julian was Caleb's fiancé. Caleb's phone rang, and he stepped away to take the call, telling Leo to wait for him in his room. Leo, of course, did not. He sat stiffly on the sofa. As soon as Caleb was gone, Julian's smile vanished. He informed Leo that he and Caleb had known each other since birth and were supposed to be engaged in the fall. Leo, mortified, promised he would leave Caleb as soon as possible. Julian looked surprised. Then a cunning light entered his eyes. He offered to help, to send Leo somewhere Caleb's influence couldn't reach, and bring him back when things had settled down. He said it would be a way to help himself, too. He had Leo add him as a contact. The name was Ian. Caleb returned later, his face a cold mask, and asked where Julian was. When Leo told him he had left, Caleb's expression softened. He explained he had to go out and told Leo to get some sleep. Leo knew he was going after Julian. He spent a sleepless night in Caleb's enormous bed. In the morning, he decided to leave. He ran into the family butler on his way out, the same man who had helped him leave after the birthday party. The butler simply nodded and said it was the young master's choice. He slept until noon in his own apartment and woke to find Caleb asleep beside him. He tried to slip away, but Caleb pulled him back, kissing him sleepily, much like that first time he'd mistaken him for someone else. Caleb mumbled something about wanting to get married. A dream, Leo thought. He told him to go ahead and get married. Caleb's eyes opened, clear and focused. He took Leo's hand, kissing his fingertips, and said he had to wait. That evening, after a meal prepared by a silent, efficient staff that appeared and disappeared like ghosts, Caleb asked why Leo had turned down the job offer he had finally secured. Leo gave a weak excuse about not liking it anymore. Caleb told him not to look for another job. He could support him. Leo agreed lightly, but Caleb's gaze was intense as he said he was afraid Leo didn't really mean it. Later, Leo gathered the courage to ask what Caleb even saw in him, pointing out that they were from different worlds. Caleb reminded him of a disastrous outdoor education course from freshman year, where everyone else had wasted resources, and Leo had quietly salvaged the situation with his practical skills. He said he was drawn to Leo's grounding presence, that the 3 months they had lived together were the most peaceful of his life. He admitted his father's anger was because he'd been secretly dismantling the family's less legitimate enterprises. The second fight was because of Julian. Their families had arranged the marriage years ago. After Julian's grandfather had supposedly taken a bullet for Caleb during a kidnapping, an event Caleb had recently discovered was staged by the grandfather himself to secure his family's position. Caleb had forgiven the deceit, on the condition that Julian give up the fantasy of their engagement. Leo, overwhelmed, cut him off, changing the subject by reminding him that the doctor had said that after 3 months, certain activities were safe again. Caleb's eyes darkened, but he shook his head, stating he wasn't an animal. Leo looked down, his face flushing, and quietly confessed that he was. Afterward, as the city slept, Leo slipped out of the apartment. A black car was waiting at the corner, just as Julian, or Ian, had promised. He walked toward it, toward the new future he had chosen. He opened the door, and the overpowering scent of cheap cologne hit him. In the driver's seat was the man from the dormitory. His blood ran cold. He tried to run, but the man grabbed him and pulled him inside. From the passenger seat, Ian turned, his face bruised and swollen, his smile laced with a chilling malice. He welcomed Leo to hell. Leo's phone was snatched away and stabbed through with a knife. Ian sneered that after 20 years of loyalty to Caleb, he couldn't understand why Caleb would turn on him for someone he'd known for a few months. The car remained stationary. Ian yelled at the driver to go, but the driver replied calmly that they weren't all there yet. The back door opened, and Caleb slid into the seat beside Leo. "Now we are," he said. Ian's face went white. The driver, it turned out, was one of Caleb's men. He casually told Leo he'd been careful not to hit the phone's battery. Caleb kicked the back of Ian's seat, his voice low and dangerous. He said he had given him a way out. He had offered to call off the engagement and compensate Ian's family generously. But Ian, bitter and vengeful, had instead tried to lure Leo into a trap to ruin him completely. Back in the apartment, with the door securely locked, Caleb was quiet, but a storm was brewing in his eyes. Leo realized he was in trouble. Caleb told him he wasn't a fool. When Leo had transferred all the money he'd been given to his sister's account, he knew he was planning to run. Ian's final, desperate shout echoed in his mind. "If my flight hadn't been delayed, it would have been me in your bed that night. It never would have been you." The last piece of the puzzle clicked into place. The realization dawned on Caleb's face, transforming his anger into something else entirely: shock, awe, and an all-consuming possessiveness. He moved toward Leo, his gaze fixed on him. He had thought that night was just a fever dream. He leaned in, his voice a low whisper. Now I need to verify for myself if that night was just a dream. His lips came down on Leo's, not questioning, but claiming. He murmured against his mouth, "Yes, I am."